any meetings.
That's okay. I'm here just to listen.
You all know Takouhi, and you know perhaps who I am. My name is
Who are you?
Mary.
Okay, good.
It's a
Just
very,
checking.
very biblical name, of course. And I'm sort of like that, Mary, but not really. Just a name only. But anyhow, welcome to our little restaurant and inn. We love this place, and Rob's family have loved it. Lots of people in this village have spent time here. And Takouhi was one of them. She and Gary and her dad walked in here, how many years ago?
2009, so 7 years
7
ago.
years ago already.
Yeah.
And here she is having an impact on us, and now doing this wonderful thing, providing us with this book right in time for Christmas. And if you know, of course, some of the proceeds will go to the food bank, which is a great cause. So I'll leave it to you.
Thank
Takouhi,
you.
But please, thank you for coming, and help yourself with lots of coffee over here too.
Thank you so much. This is not vodka, this is water.
Oh, sure. Tell us about that.
I wanted to say a heartfelt thank you for being here. And I promise you I will not give a sermon, but I was asked to share a little bit about my heritage, my roots, and what has brought me here so far. So I want to start off by saying that I am a descendant of a survivor of the Armenian genocide. My father was 3 years old when he journeyed through Western Armenia, through Turkey, deserts, to Syria, to Lebanon. And you'll see I'm wearing a little charm here, and it's called Forget-Me-Not. This was the Forget-Me-Not flower that was created and dedicated to the 100th anniversary of the genocide last year. So just a few months ago, my cousin, who is a jeweler, made me this and gave it to me as a gift. So it's really signs of my roots that are blossoming all through here. And I always wear the Armenian cross, which is very close to the Celtic cross, whoever is familiar with their Irish roots. And it is just phenomenal to be able to carry these little symbols to keep me rooted in who I am and where I come from. One day I remember somebody was asking me, so are you ever going to do your family tree somehow so that you go to ancestry.ca and find out things? I said, I don't think that would be possible, because in the genocide, everything is just gone. And it really, that made me a little bit sad, saying, I don't have anything in the past to hold on to. But then this little voice inside of me said, but you are created and founded through the Creator. So your roots are in the Creator. So what more do you want? So here I am. My childhood has been growing up in the Civil War of Lebanon. So I was born in 1967, November 18. And 1975, the Civil War began in Beirut. Went to school only whenever there were no bombs and no snipers available. So made it through life like that. In 1978, we had a 2-week-long intense war that was going on, that we literally did not see the sun for 10 days. So it's been all these things I share with you, not as to be like just bringing up my wounds out, but I'm speaking out of my scars that have been healed, but have given me the courage to go on and persevere in life. Someone asked me the other day, what was your poetic inspirations? I have to say, my eldest sister used to write lyrics and treat them as poetry and so on, and she would write her own poetry. So my sister Silva, who lives in California now, she has been one of the people who has planted the seed of love of poetry in me. And of course, as we grew up in the war, my mother's best book in her hand was always the Bible. and she would read to us from the Psalms. And those of you who are familiar with the Bible and the book of Psalms, it is a book of poetry, of lamentations, of praise, and of other types. So the Psalms have made us, or inspired me also for poetry. And when we were in Sunday school, we would learn different Psalms by heart. So there are times when we say what is that? Psalm 23 in church, the Lord is my shepherd. And then I start saying it in Armenian in my heart, because that's how I learned it. But the musical tones of poetry and so on have always inspired me, because not only it is words, but it is few words giving you an image to see it yourself instead of just the author telling you everything. So there is an invitation for the hearer or the reader to have their own imagination of seeing the picture more than what it's written. So that leans into my love of photography, imagery. My father was a photographer, and that's how he kept a family of 9 going. His camera was the bread and butter. So he always encapsulated moments at restaurants. He worked in a restaurant. He rented a very small room, maybe as big as from here to Valerie. And he would take pictures in the restaurant, and he would develop them and sell it to the clients right away. That was in the olden days when there were no digital cameras available. Besides the Bible and my family's influence to inspire me to write, authors such as Emily Dickinson, Elizabeth Barrett Browning have played a part in influencing me also. One of other inspirations is that one of my teachers in 6th grade back in Beirut, he was my English teacher. His name is Harry, and he used to give us poetry to learn by heart, but I didn't know what was their origin from. They were lyrics from Bob Dylan, the Beatles, John Lennon, Paul McCartney. So now I'm like, I love these words, and they are songs I never knew. So that's just to give you a little bit of a background. So this book, really, it represents my roots, but yet my also desire to make this world a better place, or to capture the moments that is good and gives us riches beyond our imagination. So as I said, my father's work of photography, I think, has helped me to be trained in seeing things in a special way. Back in 1981 or 82, I don't remember exactly, but I'm sure I have it written somewhere, he actually allowed me to take his camera with me for a day trip that the youth group had. So we were going to go to the mountains of Lebanon to enjoy the snow. Of course, we couldn't afford ski gear to go skiing, and I've never really learned how to ski in my life. But he allowed me to take his camera of bread and butter winner, with me. So when I returned and he developed the pictures, he was very proud father, I have to say, because he saw, first of all, the camera was okay, not hurt. And second, he also realized the pictures, the angles I had taken, they were wonderful. They were good for his quality of work. This past Friday, I had the privilege to be at the Armenian Evangelical Church in Toronto. That's where my older sister Ruth lives and attends. And she had asked someone to share the presentation of the book and so on. And another another lady that was there, and I've known her since my childhood back in Lebanon. She came to me and she said, Takouhi, and Takouhi is my name, Takouhi. You know how you have Charles and Chuck?
Yes.
So my name Takouhi is the Charles version, and Takouhi is the Chuck version. So, and she came to me and she said, Takouhi, when I opened your book, I saw, she said, your father on one page, which was the page of the photography, and your mother on the page of the poetry. Because she said, your father had the eye for photographing people and whatever else, and your mother had the beautiful gift of writing. And that reminded me of how my mother wrote letters. At that time, post was good to go, no emails. So she always told me, never forget to date your letter. And her letters were always almost not boring sermons. They were encouraging words for the other people. And even though she was giving news from home to them, but she was still keeping on being an encouraging source for everyone. It was 30 years ago, August of '86, when I entered Canada as a refugee. So this year, it's quite the not planned divine coincidence that my very first book comes out on the 30th anniversary. It was exactly 4 days after the anniversary date that my books arrived at home in Portland. So I am so grateful to the Canadian government and the people and their hospitality to take me in as a refugee and give me a sanctuary where I can grow and not only experience the transformation in my life, but also be an instrument of goodness to others. So I married an amazing man called Gary back in 2000, the Canuck. And I have to say, without his support, I would never be here. First, God's grace, and second, his support that I have been able to go through schooling and so on. He has designed the book, and we have worked together on it. Some of the pictures in there are also taken by him. So this is a partnership, and it was a labor of love. It wasn't just a project for us to do. And I would have never imagined that May 28, 2011, I would be the very first Armenian female minister ordained within Canada. I'm afraid to say that so loudly, so I'm going to say it within the United Church of Canada, because I think I would need to do a little bit of research to know if there was another Armenian female ordained minister in Canada. All this to say, friends, with so many things being talked about, refugees and so on and so forth, I want to encourage you not to be scared of the other. A year ago, I sat down at a church event somewhere else, and this lady went on for 45 minutes telling me what a bad idea it was to accept refugees into Canada. I let her speak for 45 minutes. And at the end of her spiel, I just turned around and said, "It is too bad that you think about me that way." She turned purple and blue and yellow and green and whatever. And she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Because 30 years ago, well at that time 29 years ago, I was also a refugee." So let's not paint everyone with the same brush. Because we can't. We just can't, you know. You will realize the book, the foreword, those of you who have already purchased it and received it, in the book you have a foreword, and the foreword is written by the Chief Imam Resident Scholar of Cordova Spiritual Education Center in Ottawa, Muhammad Jabara. And why did I choose to do this? Is because I wanted to show that two different faiths can exist, coexist together. My mother has told me that when she was a newlywed bride and pregnant with her first baby, and my father being the night owl of photographing in casinos and restaurants and whatever else, sometimes in the beginning of their marriage, he barely came home. So, her own parents and her own mother-in-law that lived across the street from her did not care for her needs. I remember clearly she said that once she went to her mother-in-law's home and she said, "Mom, I smell orange in the house. Do you have oranges? I haven't eaten for a couple of days." And she's pregnant. And her mother-in-law said, "Well, you have my son who's taking care of you. You can go back home now." And that was it. So when she went home crying, her landlord's wife saw her and asked her and said, "Why are you crying?" And she said, "Because I haven't had anything to eat for a few days." Her landlord was a Muslim, and of course the wife is Muslim. She turned around after hearing that. She fed my mother every single day. Whatever food she made, she brought her a plate of food. So, I rest my case about the Muslims and the Christians and so on. These poems in this book are a collection that I had started to write when I came to Canada. And we have two sections in the book. The first part holds poetry from 2002 to 2014, taken and pictures that are taken by me and my husband. And at the end of the book, there is an index. And that index actually tells you each page, picture, and where they were taken. So that you know this is an organic work. There's no copying anybody's pictures. The second section is a section of prayers. And you might be a churchgoer or not, it doesn't matter. But prayers are a good way of just taking moments to take care of our souls and our little inner selves that need to just calm down. So these prayers in the bag are for Advent, Christmas, Epiphany, and New Year. If you don't mind, I'm almost finished with this. I would love to read a poem for you.
Please, yeah.
And then if you have any questions, I will be happy to take questions. And if you want to hear more, I can read one more poem. One of my short and favorite poems. I mean, they're all my favorite, but you know. This one is called Unexpectedly, and it's on page 34. Unexpectedly you came to us, God of love in human form. Understanding our shortfalls and strife, you hold us in love beyond our regard. Hope is your message, peace is your song, joy is the result of your abundant love. Unexpectedly wake us up, God of love beyond our thoughts. May your message be our song, your vision be our guide. Unexpectedly let us love through the ceaseless love of God. And the blessing for this poem is, may your Christmas be filled with unexpected joys and your new year with love and song. And this was written in 2011 Christmas in Magog, Quebec. Do you have any questions? Yes, Robin.
It's when, because you said your sister's in California.
Yes.
So when you emigrated to Canada, where did you settle, and then where did your family disperse to?
Yeah. I actually left Lebanon, and you can read this article here. I left Lebanon through the roads to the mountains of Lebanon into Los Angeles. So from Syria, made it to Los Angeles. I went to high school there for 3 years. But when I was graduating, my sister was about to get married, and then my sisters in Beirut had heard that the Canadian government had opened its doors for Canada. So that meant I really didn't need a visa to enter Canada. So I packed everything, flew to Boston. My sister's friends in Boston greeted me, took me in for the weekend. Then Sunday afternoon, I took the Greyhound bus with my sister Ruth with me, and we came to the border of Vermont and Quebec, at La Cove. Over there, they asked me, where's your paperwork? I said, I don't have a paperwork because I know you're going to give it to me now. I was 19.
We're so cheeky then.
And the guy said, what do you mean? I said, well, I heard that the Canadian government has opened its doors for Lebanese people. I'm Lebanese, so I want to call Canada home. So I entered Canada in '86, lived in Montreal with my 2 sisters and my mom. My mom passed away 8 years after that. And then after I met Gary and we got married, for 2 years, I started receiving messages to go into ministry, but I just didn't want to. First, I didn't want to go back to school. High school was good enough. And second, I believe my culture had left an impression on me that women can't be ministers. So that was an obstacle that was in my mind and heart that I wasn't really aware of it. But during that time, when I was discerning the call to go into ministry, I remembered that when I was a young girl, I always wanted to marry a minister. So I thought if that was indirectly God's call to me, that I was saying, no, I don't want to be a minister, but I want to marry a minister. You know what I mean? So in 2005, January 1st, I needed to go back to university to do my undergraduate, then to do my bachelor in theology, then to do my master's of divinity. The woman who said no to school, she had to go to school nonstop for 6 years. So 2005, this started the journey of school, and then 2011, I was ordained and so on. And then 2009, when I had to do my internship, they gave me a phone call. That was April of 2009. And the United Church of Canada's committee that sets you up where to do your internship, they said, we have a place for you. It's called Rideau Lakes Township. I said, where on earth is that?
Right beside Westport.
Good one. So they said, you have 20 minutes. We'll call you back for your answer. I said, and if I don't go, what happens? And the person said, there are more students than places, so think wisely. So I hung up, I called one of my Anglican friends, she's an awesome woman, and I said, Judy, you know Ontario well, where on earth is Smiths Falls? Where on earth is Elgin, Portland? And she said, oh, it's a good place, it's next to Westport, and I'm not exaggerating. She literally said that, and I said, okay, what do you mean I should go? She said, yes, go, and I'll be the first one to visit you. So that's how I came to this area, September 2009. I did my internship. Then Reverend Rodney Smith-Merkley was leaving for parental leave. When he announced that, the people were asking, well, what are we going to do, you know? And then I said, I can offer 2 months of student ministry, not 3, because I needed to go back to school again. So when the day came, August 1st, 2010, and I was giving the keys to the churches, to the committee member, a voice inside of me said, let's see how long it's going to take for you to come back. And I literally looked around in the sanctuary that who said that, you know, because it was that clear. And that was 2010, August, and I returned February 2013. So I've been here since February 2013 as the incumbent minister for Elvin Portland, but the ride has been awesome. Yeah, we love the people, and it was thanks to Gary who said, why don't you apply? I'm like, really? You want to leave? You're the one who's born in Montreal. She said, no, apply. People love you. You love them. I love them. Let's go. And Reverend Rodney had announced that he's going to leave and move on to Bob Cajun. 10 people called me that Sunday afternoon. They said, can you come? I said, no, you have to do the process. You have to go through the process and let the Spirit guide us. So here I am. Yeah, thank you.
Takouhi,
Yes.
my first impression, my first meeting with you, I don't know if you remember, I was invited to participate in a Christmas show in Delta at the United Church. And I was reading a story, a Christmas story. I had two little girls in their pajamas next to me. I had the choir behind me, and there was a packed congregation in front, standing room only. And anyway, the idea was that I was to speak a little bit, tell a little bit of the story, and then there'd be a break, and then the choir would be singing a song.
Yes.
And then the next, it would be the congregation was permitted to sing a Christmas
Yes.
song. And I kept thinking, who is that? I kept hearing this voice. And I was looking around, and then all of a sudden, I could just feel that connection. And I looked, and there was Takouhi in about the third row, smiling, an enormous smile, and I thought, that's who it was. The lady in front, her husband was asleep, and she had to keep nudging her. So that was my first meeting with Takouhi, and she came over afterwards, and I said, what a wonderful voice. I mean, we just clicked after that.
Yes, we
Complete
did.
strangers.
Yes.
And it's been so special
Yes.
to have you in my
Thanks,
life,
Valerie.
you know.
Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
I remember that evening. You're saying it and I'm seeing it. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that.
I don't know if anybody else has special memories of their meetings with Takouhi that they'd like to share.
Feel free.
Just me.
Maybe a little different topic.
Yeah?
As someone who's come to an area like Portland, Westport, as a, well, you started out, you were a refugee, and you came with a very different background than most of us. How do you think a family, if we were interested in supporting a family to come to this country, we had a wonderful evening, as you perhaps know, last fall, where we supported
Yes.
the Syrian refugee cause. I guess I've always wondered how it would feel, how a family would feel in terms of fitting in, or do they need a larger community, as in a bigger city like even Perth or Kingston?
I would say both sides have both, positives and negatives, right? So for me, it just happened that I ended up being in Montreal. And when we rented an apartment, it was not even close to the bus stops, but we used to walk about 10 blocks to get to the bus stop and stuff. So, but I think if you have the right people, when you have the right people supporting the new coming family, I don't see why not.
Did you speak any English when you were?
Yes, my schooling in Beirut was Armenian, Arabic, and English. Yeah, and we did all three languages of literature and grammar and so on. So yeah, I did speak it, but not this comfortably, but yeah. Yeah.
I just wonder, because sometimes I wonder if we haven't let ourselves speaking personally now here.
Yeah.
I had a young woman stay with us last winter who was very active in Ottawa and supported some families who were coming over. And
Yeah.
she asked me if I couldn't do something here. And I guess I thought I copped out in saying I didn't think that a person from another country with those different roots and experiences and not speaking English would fit in West.
Well, you know what, Mary? This area for me is the life in the villages of Lebanon. It's all good. It really is. And I have to say, I tried to get a couple of families to come this way, but I really couldn't do it myself, or the people I was approaching, they had already had promised for other families to come in. So those groups weren't able to support them. But I could just see it right there, Portland Station Road, rent a house, put them in, get people, volunteers to be their, guide and take them, driving lessons and this and that, I mean, I learned driving in Lebanon, even though, whatever. But, I think there are possibilities everywhere. And after they're settled here, they might want to stay or they might want to go into the city. That's okay, But I don't think anyone would mind as long as you offer them a sanctuary, a safe space to live, where they don't have to fear the bombs shelling around them. And who wouldn't want, Yeah. We are truly fortunate to live in a place like this. My mother always called Canada the promised land of milk and honey. Even though in Montreal we didn't see a lot of milk and honey on the roads, but here we do, right? We see the beehives and we see the cows. We're good. So, yeah.
Okay, well, thank you for answering that. And
Thank you.
it was good you speaking. So,
Well, you know what? Let's do it. I'm all for it. And just to let you know, I have brought my communion set that my sister had sent to me in 2011 or so. And this is made out of the cedars of Lebanon. So now you can come and touch it and say, I've touched the cedars of Lebanon. And I mentioned this in my book, I think in my introduction. This is my very first notebook of poetry that I had started in 1982. So I put it in a thing like this now that I found it again, so that people can see that where it all started from. And as you know, the book is $20, and $5 per book is going to go to our food banks from this afternoon. So thank you so much. Thank you.